So is a water baptism and being put into Christ the same thing?
It represents the same thing, but it is not the same thing exactly, any more than if you have a photograph of your wife in your pocket. You could say, well, this is my wife. Not the same thing. If it were, you could trade the photo for your real wife. Would you do that?
I don't think
No,
so.
because it's not the same. It's just a little piece of paper with chemicals on it. But when you look at it, you're reminded of who she is. So when we look at this ceremony of baptism, it reminds us of the real thing.
Okay, so does it happen at the same time?
It could. It could. But realizing this, if someone is taught that the Lord is our hope, and by putting confidence, faith in Him, agreeing with Him, then the Spirit of God will put us into His death and burial and resurrection, and we agree with that, and we are immediately put into the ceremony of water baptism. Well, I guess they'd happen at the same time, wouldn't they? But if we read the story, for example, of the Ethiopian man who was traveling from Jerusalem back to Ethiopia, and the Apostle Philip was sent to meet him. And Philip caught up with him as he was riding in his chariot, and he saw that he was reading from the book of Isaiah. And Philip asked him, "Sir, do you understand what you're reading?" And the answer was, "How can I unless somebody teaches me?" "Okay, what is your question?" He said, "Well, the prophet," meaning Isaiah, he's talking about one who was wounded for our transgressions and bore our griefs and sorrows, reading from Isaiah 53. And he said, is the prophet talking about himself or someone else? And Philip then said, well, I'll tell you. And he explained to him who the Lord is and what He has done for him. And he didn't tell us precisely what he said to him, but he told him about Jesus. Now, Jesus came to save us from sin. Salvation is by being put into Him, into His death and burial and resurrection. I have no doubt that that's what he told that Ethiopian. And the Ethiopian immediately accepted that. And then as they went on a little further, they came to a place where there's some water. And the Ethiopian said, well, what's to keep me from being baptized in this water? So they did. Now the question was, what came first, the water baptism or the acceptance by faith of what Philip told him? It happened first, what Philip told him. When the man came to the water, he was already the Lord's man, resurrected in the Lord. Now he wanted to do the ceremony to make it more clear. Now we don't know how many other people might have been with him, but he was probably a rich man. My guess is he probably had a company of others who were traveling with him, or servants or somebody, and they would all see it. Would it be of any benefit to them to get this public illustration from a man who had now become a believer? Maybe make that truth convey to these other folks. How do you think Philip felt about it? And the angel certainly rejoiced. Not because the man was put into water, but because he agreed with the Lord. The water was just his testimony publicly, so it was shown. So, not exactly at the same time. What if it had happened 5 days later, or a year later?